Can you please speak about oneness and how it relates to love versus hate or pain? I was speaking with someone who believes God is only love and there is a separate energy of hate, evil that causes suffering. I don't see it this way, but if oneness is pure love, then how do we understand the people who experience painful and negative acts? Example, murder, abuse, racism. Although the acts of pain may be impersonal, where do these acts come from? Nowhere. The beginning of time. Where is the energy within oneness? I know right here, right now, this question is irrelevant and will pass, but I'm still sending it. Thank you. Much love. Thanks, Susan. So, I think that the energy of separation creates murder, abuse, racism. I think that it is possible to exist without separation, but not very much. So, say if you weren't separate and somebody was attacking your family or attacking you, there might be murder that happens. But I think that the suffering leads to hate and evil. Separation leads to hate and evil. Like on the human level, I don't really claim for much to have changed on the human level here. Well, I do actually. I say a lot changed, but I try to say that it's not really about the human level. But I don't feel like I act out of hate and do evil things. Sometimes what I do might be to one person a glorious act, to another person an evil act, but from my heart it doesn't feel like I act out of hate or evil, no matter what I've done. It just doesn't feel like it's there. It just doesn't come up. I can act out of anger in the moment, but it's not hate or evil. The reason that hate and evil only exist with separation is because they normally come, hate and evil, from a feeling of being victim to life and to another person. So you feel somebody has done something bad to you and that they deserve revenge. So say someone doesn't please you, someone doesn't do what you want, you might not be aware of it, but then you feel victim to it and a revenge act happens. So then you might be trying to put them down publicly, make them feel small, be superior. You might even steal from them because you feel justified. You feel they've done something bad and it's justified that you do something bad back to them, that you take from them. And this gets stronger and stronger. Say if you're madly in love with someone and that person leaves you for another person, you might feel so much hate towards them that you do really revengeful thing, maybe even lead to murder. They say that the number one cause of murder is normally through love relationships. And it can also be a gradual thing, that bit by bit someone keeps repetitively not giving you what you want and more hate arises towards them, so there's more of attack on them. And the reason I don't feel like this happens when you're not separate is because your energy is so sucked into the moment that your energy is not obsessing on what has happened or what's going to happen as much. So it's almost like the human's more clean in a way. Like it has its particular patterns and its setups, but it's not holding on to the past or future. Whereas hate and evilness really depends on somebody really hating and holding on to what's happened or what could happen or what might happen. And abuse, I think that most white people are racist, so enlightened or not, I think that everybody's most probably racist. Like I think it's a very biological thing, racism. I'm not saying it's justified or it's okay, but I think that the studies that they've done on our brains when there's something really different from our norm, so what we're used to, so say a face that's different or a person that's different, then biologically there is a block that comes up towards that person. So we are more attracted to people that are similar to ourselves. So I don't think it's just white people, actually. It's just that's easier to look at in Western society. I'm sure it's the other way around. I know when I go to India, I get stared at all the time. Not saying that's necessarily racist. They're staring at, but I don't know what that is, but I think it comes with an energy of Indian men often think that white women are going to have sex with everybody on the street in that instance. There's they have this over-sexualization of white women. I think we look really physically different, so it's shocking sometimes. I think they're interested in what you're like, whether you're friendly or aggressive. I think, though, that racism is, I don't know, this is a very difficult subject and I haven't really studied racism, so I don't really know it that well. And I think sometimes that we aren't aware that we're being racist, or what we define as racist. I remember when I was in Holland, we went out, me and my friend went out just before Christmas, and we were really shocked because there was a big celebration going on and it was white people dressed as black people. So they painted their face black and their lips red, and they wore these elf costumes. And it was really shocking because in England that would be banned. You wouldn't be allowed to do something like that. But to Dutch people that was a very normal behaviour. And if you were to say to someone that did that in England that was considered racist, they wouldn't understand that perspective. So I think racism is a very difficult issue, but I think that maybe as an animal we're all got that potentiality for racism. Racism that you're maybe talking about is actually racism that's acted out on, where people actually believe that so there's that natural instinct to be wary of things that are new or different, but then actually people that believe that there's a superior race, or there's an more intelligent race. And maybe my prejudice comes up because then I think that people that think that are maybe stupid. I don't know if that's prejudiced. But I know there's a lot of argument about what the intelligent race is and what the unintelligent race is, and it seems like a very stupid things to even think about. I think we kind of got to get on with mingling, all of us. That's my personal perspective. The more that we mingle and breed together, the more that we'll be okay with each other. Abuse. I think abuse solely comes from separation. I think it's again like a revenge thing. I think sometimes though maybe we can be abusive and not know we're being abusive. Like swearing at one person, they might find it funny. Swearing at another person, they might see it as abusive. But I think serious abuse is the same as hate or evil. So you asked, why does oneness create that? It's not that oneness creates it. its default of creating this self-aware being. It's not that it consciously did it, but when it created this self-aware being that could think, this thinking ability, this thinking machine, this thinking animal began to have this dualistic thinking of good and bad and right and wrong and past and future and me and other. And with that idea, me and other, then this divide happened between them and someone else. And then the suffering begins as soon as the separation, because you forget that you are it all. You are this freedom. You are this intimate moment. So it's not that life consciously created this separation, this hate and evilness. It's innocently did it. And it most probably is innocently going to end it again. Like, I don't think separation can sustain itself. There was something else I wanted to say on this as well. I forgot. I think the hardest thing for us to accept as humans is the opposite side of life. So we're okay to accept pleasure, happiness, freedom, growth, security, love, bonding, friendship. But what we're not okay with on the human level is accepting the opposite of that. That things decay, things end, things change, things die, things leave. And that's too painful for our mind to cope with. It feels too chaotic to imagine that we could potentially die, or that loved ones can potentially die, and that dying process could be a painful process. That people could war and fight and hate each other and kill each other. In our brains, this is too much for us to bear. In the imagination, it feels too big. Like, how can you deal with that imagination? But notice that that is your imagination. It's not something that dogs or cats or cows or bunny rabbits have to deal with. They can't imagine all the cruelties and the horrors of this life, because they're totally connected to this moment, and in this moment it all disappears. So firstly, see that in this moment it's free of the opposites. It's free of all the beautiful things, and it's free of all the negative things. It doesn't mean we have to ignore them on the human imagination level, but we just see them for what they are. That actually in this moment, those terrors, those horrible acts are never happening. Even in the moment of war, it's not happening in this instant. I know that sounds really odd, but as you get to know this moment better, you see that nothing is as you think it is. And all the destruction and devastation that you see in your imagination is separate from it actually happening. It is your imagination. And from my 37 years of being on this planet, all those things that you fear aren't as bad as you think they're going to be. When you're actually experiencing them, they're different from the way that you experience them. When you're having the imagination of them, you're having all your abandonment feelings, your terror feelings, your insecurity feelings sparked. And so it's like your worst possible feelings sparked, but actually in the moment of it happening, normally you're very involved in it happening, so that's not being sparked in the same way. Basically, when those thoughts begin to arise about all these horrible things that could potentially happen in life, you can give it back. You don't have to live in this constant pendulum of all the heavenly things, all the hell things, all the heavenly things, all the hell things. You can just come back here, and you can just use them to help inform you about the situation slightly, But most of the time you're here. This is your home, this is your God, and this is where you're safe. Right here, in this moment. You can give the chaos back. Thanks, Timothy. No, it wasn't Timothy. Thanks, Susan. Thanks, Susan.